Well, I'm really thrilled to be here to do this presentation. Arizona, of course, is famous for its cactus and succulent flora. But I'm really hoping that in this presentation I'm able to offer some surprises, some plants that you may not be very familiar with, and some photographs of those plants, a little background on where they grow, why they grow there, some of the fascinating ecology and environmental biology in Arizona, which is really, really remarkable here in this state. And before I get started, actually, I want to acknowledge a few people because I'll forget at the end. First of all, Woody Minnick, who's been the speaker chair and has handled the whole speaker process unbelievably skillfully. And he's also the chair of all the vendors. So he's coordinating all of the vendor arrangements, loading in, keeping everybody happy. And you know, between the speakers and the vendors, there's really no ego at all. So I'm sure it's a very easy task. But anyway, really, Woody's just been tireless the past few days and previous to the convention as well, and he's just done an amazing job. The Cactus and Succulent Society of America is just an absolutely crucial organization. I am very blessed to be the recipient of 3 research grants from the CSSA for the PhD work that I'm doing in Baja California, which is central to cactus conservation going forward. The future of the cactus family is somewhat imperiled. A recent assessment of the family showed that 31% of the species are endangered. It was a shocking assessment, actually, that came through, and everybody was like, really? 5th most endangered group of plants on the planet, or 5th most endangered family, animal or plant, on the planet. So whether you guys are aware of what goes on behind the scenes or not, the research grants are absolutely essential to continued work with all these plants that are so valuable to all of us. And I really am very, very grateful to the CSSA for that. You know that for the Endangered Species Act, something like 72% of the listed species are plant species. 10% of the funding goes to managing that 72% of endangered species. So again, the CSSA is indispensable, and I really hope that I'll put in a plug for that $50,000 matching grant too. But anyway, I also really want to thank the Tucson Club for being behind the field guide and printing it. It's in its 2nd printing now, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the Tucson Club and Dick, and I know Vaughn is here, I think Greg's probably in the room. Really, there was so much work involved in that, and it was great to be a part of that. And finally, you know, the co-authors, Rob Romero, Vaughn, Greg, Doug Dawson did the Dudleya, and a bunch of other authors. It was really an amazing project. I'll talk more about that at the end. But anyway, this is Escobaria missouriensis in the House Rock Valley, up near, you know, the Grand Canyon, on the way up there, on the way up the Kaibab Plateau. I don't know if you can even see it. Let's see. Oh, it's not on yet. All right. There we go. Hello. Where's the pointer? There it is. So there it is, right there. So, you know, you're probably way more familiar with the saguaros, the barrel cacti, the bigger prickly pears, the really dramatic, I know it was Powell and Whedon, Jim Whedon, calls some of the Arizona plants the charismatic megaflora of Arizona. You know, the saguaros and all those. Most of this presentation is going to be about these really cool, really difficult to find sometimes, other plants. So it's just an overview of the treasures, really. I'll start, and I'm going to do it geographically. I have it broken down to Southeastern, Southwestern, Central, Northeastern, and Northwestern, and then the Grand Canyon, because there's some special things on the way up there. But anyway, I don't know if you've ever been down to Southeastern Arizona. It's very little visited, really. It's not very populous down there. There's Douglas. There's, you know, not a whole, there's Bisbee, which is cool, you know, very touristy. You know, you can get like a $9 piece of pie down there. But anyway, The cool thing about Arizona, now I don't know if you were aware of this, but there are 210 named mountain ranges in Arizona. 210. And every known biome on the planet is represented in Arizona except for tropical thorn scrub, which almost, you have to go to southern Baja to get there, or down into Sonora around Alamos. It's pretty close, but every other known biome is represented in the state. So you can imagine that leads to a lot of biodiversity, right? 210 mountain ranges, those are barriers. You're going to get a lot of speciation, and then all these different biomes. And the really cool thing about Arizona cacti and succulents is they grow in all the biomes. They grow in the pine forest. Well, they don't grow in the tundra up around Flagstaff. There's actual tundra up there. There's no cacti up there. But every other biome. So it's cool. So here's a map just showing you sort of the layout. Sierra Vista, Bisbee, Douglas. This road is a main road, but there's also this really cool road that goes that way over called Geronimo Trail. And there's incredible botany along Geronimo Trail. And there's the Google Earth picture, the Chiricahuas, and there's just beautiful mountains down in here in between all the grassland. So one of the really cool plants that's down along here is Escobaria robinsorum. It was discovered by a 10-year-old out there with his dad looking at cacti. So that shows you sort of the role that a lot of amateur botanists have played that's still really important. Anyway, in 1976 it was described in a separate genus, but it really fits in Escobaria, or Coryphantha if you prefer, very clearly. It's very narrowly distributed on limestone outcrops really right on the border with Mexico, and then there's Mexican populations as well. But it's a beautiful plant. It's a little challenging to grow, I found. I'm not sure, maybe Steve Brack would disagree, or people who really know what they're doing. But it seems to me to be a little bit touchy. And it calls to mind a little bit of yesterday's presentation around the rock gardens. You're going to see a lot of these plants that are the smaller endemic cacti of Arizona really are petrophiles, they're called. They love rocks. They love rocks. And one way to find all these guys is just look around for rocks and go there, and then, oh wow, there they are. So, on this limestone, this is funny too, because when you're driving out toward New Mexico from Douglas in the back roads, plus you have to talk to a lot of Border Patrol guys. But anyway, so you're out along there, and there's just a few limestone outcrops where this grows. There's tons of limestone, but there's only these little pockets. So Shannon Felberg over at the Desert Botanical Garden is trying to figure out why it doesn't colonize more freely, in available habitat. But it's very pretty. And to my mind, it looks a little bit related maybe to the whole Escobaria sneedy-eye complex. Sneedy-eye, Lee-eye, the big one farther over in Texas that right now I can't remember the name of. But anyway, yeah, so they just go right in the limestone. They have really cool spines, fuzz, nice flowers. So then there's a bunch of others down in Southeastern, and inevitably, by the way, I'm going to leave out a plant or two probably, and probably someone in the room will be furious that I left it out, but sorry. You can talk to me afterward. Mammillaria hydrae, a variety Bullingtoniana, which is a really cool plant that actually Bullingtoniana is not really accepted by a lot of taxonomists right now as a separate form, but it maybe, I don't know, we don't really know for sure. Echinocerius pseudopectinatus, which is actually more of a Sonoran, the state of Sonora in Mexico kind of plant, creeps up into Arizona. It used to be called Bristolii. Echinocerius arizonicus, subspecies Nigra horridispinus, which is just the greatest name ever. Echinomastus intertextus, erectus centris, and then, sorry that got cut off down there. Really cool little populations of Epiphyllantha micromeris are in southeastern Arizona, which they're very difficult to find, but they're down there. That's Hydrae bullingtoniana. It's not a whole lot to look at. Hello. This guy, I didn't even really list, but a beautiful resident down there in southeastern and over into New Mexico is Echinocerius fendleri rectispinus. And these have often been confused in the literature and in herbarium records with the common hedgehog, Echinocerius engelmanii, because they're very close, as well as the one that's fasciculatus, which nobody really knows what to do with all that stuff. But this is distinct. It's a diploid. For those of you who count chromosomes in the field, it's a diploid, and the other guys I mentioned are polyploids. So this little guy is the Pseudopectinatus. Very cute, and they're cute in flower. I don't happen to have a flower picture right now, but. And then down in this region is another really awesome plant, Echinopsis intertextus. And these are very pretty plants. And then this is the Echinocereus Arizonicus nigra hiritispinus. And these do fall out. Mark Baker has done some really careful morphometric analysis, and they actually really do fall out as a distinct form when you do this kind of statistical thing where they cluster and stuff. But it's kind of cool. It's a claricup. It's one of the claricup hedgehogs. They really love the rocky cliffs down in southeastern Arizona. I was tempted to climb up there and get a close-up, and then I decided not to. But another thing you'll see down all along Geronimo Trail and other places down there is these huge swarms of what is commonly called Opuntia Santa Rita, but they're probably hybrid swarms, actually, with all kinds of messy genetics going on with Macrocentra, and maybe even a little Mexican Gosseliniana sneaking up. You see some weird stuff, and then on that far hill, all that yellow is the poppies, the Mexican poppies. So if you ever get down there in the spring, it's just gorgeous. This guy's Echinomastus erectocentris, which is another southeastern Arizona plant with very nice flowers. The stigma lobes are a beautiful purple color. And sometimes they're really dramatic flowers. These are notoriously difficult in cultivation. Even in native soil, they can be touchy. So it's an interesting conundrum for conservation biology because they're always in the way of somebody wanting to build a road or something. And so it's become an interesting protocol to try to actually move these plants out of harm's way. Hardly any of those attempts have succeeded, sadly. But anyway, you can see the little spider webs up there, which is kind of cool in that picture. Okay, so that's southeastern. Like I said, I probably left out some really cool stuff, but moving on. Southwest of Tucson, all the way over to Dome Valley, which is basically Yuma. And one of the great succulents down in that area along Ruby Road is this agave parviflora, which is just one of the beautiful small, that has those great white leaf markings and some filaments along the edges of the leaves. It's really a pretty little plant. But anyway, that's the basic area that I'm looking at here. And, it's characterized actually by some of the most desertic, xeric habitat in Arizona. As you head through over to what used to be called the Colorado Desert, considered part of the Sonoran now. It depends on how you want to. If you're a desert splitter, right, it's the Colorado Desert. And I think some of these little subtle biome differences are kind of cool. And you'll see associated flora changes a lot into the Colorado Desert from the Sonoran. So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so there's the satellite picture of that area. You can clearly see how dry, low, flat. It's left over, inland sea probably from the Gulf, and etc. So one of the cool plants down there, Peniocerius striatus, which is very rarely found in the United States. It grows right along the border, and I heard from Sue Ruttman, who was the botanist at the Oregon Pipe, that the fence building project killed thousands of these going across southern Arizona. So one of the side effects of some policy sometimes is some ecological impacts that really aren't even taken into account. Nobody even knew there were thousands there, and now they're all dead, so that's cool. But anyway, this guy is just sort of the most nondescript thing you'd ever see. It just looks like a bunch of dead branches, like maybe something that's deciduous and it lost all its leaves or whatever. But I'm very fond of this cactus. I think it's amazing. And of course, it has an enormous underground taproot, like all the Peniocerius. And sometimes you'll have a tiny little stem, and if you explore a little bit, it's like, holy cow, bucket size or bigger taproot under there. The ribs are cool. The areoles are barely visible. And I've been studying the striatus down in Baja, and there are some real morphological differences, I think. So it'd be interesting if any of you want to get a PhD in splitting, check out that difference, because I think there are some. But it's pretty cool. The really cool thing is that, if you're around at the right time, this happens to be one of the Baja plants that would be considered striatus, down around Todos Santos. I saw the buds during the day, and then I drove back at 1 in the morning to try to get the picture. And it was really cool. I should have included the shot of the beetles. There were beetles that were just flying out of this flower like people out of a clown car. I mean, there were like 40 beetles in there. I have no idea what the heck they were doing. But anyway, it's a gorgeous flower. Some other ones in the southwest, Coryphantha robusta-spina, the Pima pineapple cactus, you may know it as. Coryphantha recurvata, which again is a little bit more common down in Sonora in Mexico. It just kind of creeps up along Ruby Road in southern Arizona. Mammillaria rhytii variety Wilcoxii, which is a really nice little form of rhytii. Mammillaria manii, hardly any in Arizona at all. It's very rare in Arizona. It's much more common down around Montezuma and some other places in Sonora. The beautiful little Mammillaria thornbury, which part of what I'm doing for the PhD is a molecular phylogeny of the Mammillaria of Baja California with Lucas Major over at the DBG. And one of the species we're going to include is thornbury, because it really is probably very close to a lot of those Baja Mammillaria. So we're going to be exploring that along with manii too. Agave parviflora and Echinocactus polycephalus is down in there. But Coryphantha robusta-spina is a wonderful plant. It's really a cool plant. It used to be known as Shiri robusta-spina, but again, Mark Baker, working with Charles Butterworth, did some great work to sort all that out. And it turns out that Coryphantha Shiri complex and the name robusta-spina had priority. So, but anyway, I don't know if anybody cares about that at all. But anyhow, that's Coryphantha robusta-spina in some glory, and it gets beautiful flowers. You know how to find the flowers if there's been a monsoon. Just wait about 5 days, and they'll all be in bloom. So that's how it responds. It's a repeat bloomer all summer as long as there are monsoons. And then there's Coryphantha recurvata. That one's slightly fire damaged around the bottom. A lot of these plants are fire adapted because of the grasses that actually have naturally grown there for a long time, not just the invasive ones. But recurvata is a great plant. It's very slow growing, at least here in Phoenix, and kind of hates Phoenix actually. But it's cool spines. There's Mammillaria rhytii Wilcoxii, which the selling point of that guy, by the way, is the flowers. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture right now, but anyway, a huge purple flower, really cool. This one's Mammillaria manii. And you can see that kind of spiral arrangement of spines, which is cool. These are supposed to be really easy from seed. I've never tried to grow them, but you might want to check that out. And then there's Mammillaria thornbury, which is one of my favorite mams in Arizona. It kind of, you can easily mistake it for like a miniature Grammii, the really common mam. But the flowers is totally like, holy cow. And they're really very similar to some of the Baja California flowers, so a little clue there. And then there's a closer view, a little bit out of focus or something, but anyway, it's probably my fault. The agave parviflora is a really beautiful plant. And then Echinocactus polycephalus, which is one of the marker plants of a transition to the Mojave Desert. But if you think about the Sonoran Desert, including the Colorado Desert, along the border with Sonora, over toward Yuma, then polycephalus also is a Sonoran plant, which is kind of weird. But anyway, they're pretty awesome. Okay, then Central Arizona, east of Phoenix, going over to the Superstitions and some of the mountain ranges over that way. We have a bunch of different plants. This is the Dudleya Colimii saxola. Is Doug in here? Doug, how do you pronounce that?
It's Dudleya saxosa colimia.
Oh, it's the other way around. Okay, thank you. You got to rely on your experts in the audience, right, Michelle? But anyway, so this central area of Arizona looks kind of like this. You can see that things are really varied in here. There's all kinds of geographical stuff going on, including up toward what used to be called the Navajoan Desert. Again, if you're a desert splitter. And you have the Superstition Mountains, you have up to Prescott National Forest, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But a lot of really cool plants. The flowers of that Dudley are just gorgeous, and if you go to the Superstitions at the right time, they're just all in bloom. And it's a great thing. Recent rains, I know last year the populations were really amazing. They were quite pumped up from the rain. And then Agave Tumiana Bella is a nice miniature form of the more sort of lanky-looking Tumiana. And it looks a little bit similar to Parviflora, but I guess Greg Starr was telling me they're not really that closely related. I'm not sure, but anyway, he might not be here. This guy, oh yeah, this is Mammillaria viridiflora. Now this got lumped by the iOS and some earlier efforts into Mammillaria barbata, which is a Mexican taxon. And when you're out there and you find these, it's like, well, this is really something distinct. I mean, Mammillaria viridiflora, I believe, really should be retained at the species level. I don't have any molecular data for that, but I have field experience. And it's really a beautiful plant. It's probably closely related to Wrightii and Wilcoxii in that same complex, but we don't even really know that yet. And it has, lovely flowers and beautiful spines. These are up in Devil's Canyon, up along the road to Globe. And then one of the more endangered cacti, this is actually a federally listed endangered species, Echinocerius arizonicus, and it's a claret cup, it's a diploid, it's related to Echinocerius trigloccadiatus farther east. And this guy was really cool because, there's the roots. Boom, right? So they're pretty tough, these guys. But they have beautiful spines. And again, as I said, Mark Baker's been able to separate these out from Nigra hirutispinus in the southeast, even though they are similar, of course. That's why Nigra hirutispinus is just a subspecies. But they get really nice claret cup flowers on them, but not a whole lot of those flowers, as opposed to certain other claret cups who get swarms, of flowers. They tend to put out maybe 1, 2, 3. It's a beautiful plant, federally endangered. It's right around the mines up there in the top of the world and other locales up that way. And then a really cool succulent up that way also is Graptopetalum rusbii. And it's amazing that there's a Graptopetalum in central Arizona in the first place. There's another Grapto down in along Ruby Road that I was scrambling around to get a photo of, and I didn't find that one. Graptopetalum, what's that one, Doug? Bartrami, okay. And they're close, they're similar, but really Rusbii's got its own thing happening. And unfortunately they weren't open, the flowers weren't open when I was there, but it's a really nice rosette succulent. And beautiful foliage. And then one of the more dramatic Echinocerius up that way is this probably what would have been called Apachensis. Used to be, I forget what it used to be, but anyway, it seems like, well, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, this one's just actually Engelmannii, the form of Echinocerius engelmannii sometimes called the ciculatus. But this is an example of the plants up along Fish Creek Trail, on the Apache Highway, Apache Trail, that was classified for a little while anyway as Echinocerius apachensis. And it was classified that way entirely because of those incredible spines. But it turns out through genetic analysis and floral morphology and biogeography, 3 pretty convincing areas of data, it's really Echinocerius bonkeri. You would be surprised by that because if you know bonkeri, you know it has a crew cut. But this shows you, to some extent, the dangers of using morphological characters to create entirely new names sometimes before all the data is in. Bonkeri, incredible plant and beautiful flowers, really, among the most beautiful in the Echinus areas, in my opinion. Another really awesome plant up that way is Lewisia brachycephala, I think it's called, or brachycalyx, thank you. I knew it was either calyx or cephala, but anyway, you can see these carpeting the ground up along the highways on the Mogollon Rim. Really amazing. And there's a bonkeri growing with a Lewisia. Another interesting taxon that grows around Florence and then around Ajo, and then just south of Ajo in Sonora, near this town of Sonoita, is this Echinoplastis acunensis. This was just listed as a federally endangered species probably 2 years ago. It's already been proposed for delisting for taxonomic reasons, but it's still cool. And I hope it stays listed, because it's a very restricted endemic. The populations are very small. They seem to be senescent and dying out, so it'd be cool if it could get some protection. The flowers are just gorgeous. These are flowers from the Florence population, which have some subtle differences from the type locale down in Sonoita. Especially the two-tone flowers are a little bit different. Beautiful spine cover on these acunensis also. These, by the way, oh, there's Woody. These are almost impossible to grow to flowering size in cultivation. I know, well, I'll just say for me they are. If somebody has a magic way that they get these to flowering size from seed, like again, maybe Steve Brack or somebody, I'll talk to you after the meeting. But anyway, this Woody's right there, see him? He's not one of the cacti of central Arizona. We were on a little trip out the Florence-Kelvin Highway, and one of the buddies we were with knew where a variegated saguaro was. And those of you who've been out in the desert, you see crested saguaro, you see some weird stuff, but man, variegated plants of that size that actually manage to survive are really actually pretty rare. I mean, this is a very rare beast, this variegated saguaro. So it was cool that we got a chance to visit it. The guy who told us about it is right here. But anyway, that was a nice trip. So the variegation is pretty pronounced. And then another interesting phenomenon is these sclerocacti that grow around St. John's out in eastern Arizona. And nobody's ever been able to really peg these. Are they parviflorus, Sclerocactus parviflorus? Are they Whippley? Which taxon are they? So it might be interesting to get a little more background on that. They're pretty cool looking, That's a little baby. And then north and west of Phoenix, we start getting into the really amazing cactus biodiversity up that way. I mean, as incredible as Organ Pipe is and all these other areas in Arizona, when you start heading up toward Wickenburg and then out to Meadview and then up to the canyon and up in that whole area, it really gets crazy up there. So basically we're looking at this. The other nice thing about this whole area is there's hardly anybody there. So if you hate humanity, you go up there and just commune with the cacti. One of the great plants that grows all over up there in different populations, it's so variable too, and they're all segregated populations, so who knows what the heck it'll look like a million years from now, right? Not me, is Echinoplastis johnsonii. And it's a very dramatic spiny plant. And if you go to the Butler Valley in western Arizona, near Baus, the thriving metropolis of Baus, you find these white-flowered johnsonii that are very cool. They were originally described as a separate species because of the flowers, but they're not, it's not counted that way anymore. They're really pretty. These are, this is the one that's called lutescens, which is the green flowered form. They're the easiest ones to grow in cultivation, are the Echinoplastis johnsonii. And those plants, these photos are all right up by Wickenburg along the highway to Las Vegas. All those people going 100 miles an hour to go gamble, they could stop and see this beautiful stuff. I don't know why they don't, but at least they don't dig it up. So this is a weird one. This thing was described in 1980 as a variety of vivipara called Buoflama, which was short for Bureau of Land Management, which is probably the silliest plant name I know, well, one of the silliest. But what the heck is it? Nobody knows. It was recently lumped in the flora of North America. It was lumped into Deserti or Chlorantha. I forget which name they chose. They chose either Desertii or Chlorantha for this whole complex of Escobaria that grow in really dry Mojave desert climates, right? This guy grows up around Baghdad. There's only one known population of it, and I'm not convinced it's that close to Chlorantha. Partly because it has pink flowers, but there's some other characters. Anyway, it's a really cool Escobaria up there on the limestone near Baghdad, near the Baghdad airport, of all places. It's got those typical Coryphantha Escobaria kind of spines, and the fimbriate flower petals, and it's a beautiful plant. And then this is Cainocereus yavapayensis, which is one of the new species described by Mark Baker not too long ago. It's a hexaploid, which is the weirdest thing ever. You can tell by looking at it, right? Anyway, I thought this was kind of cool. It's a crested Pherocactus acanthodes. You don't see too many crested acanthodes. You see a lot of crested Whistlezeni, but you don't see too many of those. This guy is a Cainocereus coccineus claret cup, but it's sometimes classified as Toroweepensis, or I guess Canyonensis. Those, so it's a confused literature. But Toroweepensis is questionable taxonomically, but it's a cool plant. It's got those characteristic black spines at the apex that then gray out as the plant gets older. Heading up, continuing to go into northern Arizona, that is the flower spike of Agave utahensis, kaibabensis. So if you know utahensis, I mean, it's a miniature agave, right? Not up there, not on this plateau. These things are amazing, and this the flower spikes are so cool to see. But anyway, basic area, going up that way, and you can see the dramatic effect of the Grand Canyon itself on the overall geography, and then how this, when you come down off the plateau, how much drier and so on it is here. So one of the places that you could easily just take people to on a cactus tour, and they'd probably be very, very happy, would be Meadview, Arizona. Middle of nowhere, western Grand Canyon. They're really suffering now tourist-wise because Lake Mead is like a puddle, I mean, if you go and look at Lake Mead, you can see the way that it has just gone down and down. Nobody even goes there to boat or fish anymore because it's, the pH is like 12 right now or something, But if you're a cactus freak, Meadview is amazing. So there's, in particular, there's an interesting series of intermediate hybrids or something between Echinocactus polycephalus and Xeranthomoides, the more northern form of that echinocactus. So, you can see all these different pieces. And you got the Grand Canyon flora, you have the Mojave Desert flora, and you have a little bit of sort of the, I guess you'd call it Sonoran, creeping up in there. So, that's another thing. Whenever you're looking for interesting plants, always go to where two biomes collide, because that's where most of the cool stuff is going to be. And remember that the radiation of the cactus family back into North America after the glacial maximum is very recent. So you're seeing speciation happen before your eyes, especially if you sit there long enough. Just kidding. So looking out across these amazing plains to the western Grand Canyon, Meadview is just an amazing place. You can see that polycephalus is just everywhere. There's my little 1991 Honda Civic that sadly is no more, but so, it's really quite remarkable up that way. One of the really awesome Cylindropuntia up there is called multigeniculata. Very, very amazing plant. And then the Echinomastus johnsoni up here in Meadview all have purple flowers and tend to have the blonde spines, gorgeous flowers, which I just, I had to zoom in, like, oh my God. And then you can see here the role of what's called hydropory, that's water dispersed seed, right? Because quite obviously, somebody dropped some seed up there, maybe a deceased ancestor, right? And the way the water runs is often where you find these plants. And they don't tend to disperse very far, which is a typical desert adaptation of cacti and succulents, because if you find a place where you can flower, why disperse, right? The habitat is so awful that you might as well just stay where you are. So, and then, okay, so this is an interesting tale in a way. I was really fascinated by these Opuntia, which have been known for a long time. Mesa Garden has had them in their catalog for a long time, under Opuntia ursina, I believe. And they with salmon flowers is the way it was described in the catalog. And so I really wanted to see these. I went up to Meadview. They grow all along the canyon there. And they're gorgeous plants. So I posted some photographs on the Cacti Guide forum, which Dave Freeman, our book vendor, started years and years ago. Dave and I have been in touch on the internet for 11 years, and I just met him yesterday. But so I took a bunch of pictures and posted them. And a cactus botanist named Dean Stock saw these photos, and he was like, what the heck is that thing? So he went and did a bunch of research and published a brand new species, Opuntia diploursina, which is because this is a diploid prickly pear in a sea of tetraploids. So the theory is that it is a ancient diploid relic ancestor of a bunch of other forms that grow up that way. But it's a really cool plant. Some of you may have it in cultivation. It's distinctly different from the other forms of what used to be called ursina, which probably will be called that again, by the way. Beautiful flowers, those salmon and yellow and whatever other tones those are. And great hair. If you like hair, this is your plant. And beautiful backlight, very dramatic. And then up around Meadview too are these weird hybrids that are hybrids between diploursina and Opuntia basilaris, the beavertail. So these are naturally occurring hybrids right along the canyon. There are very few of them. And they also have cool plants. And then flowers, and then another really awesome plant up that way is Echinocereus engelmannii chrysocentris, it used to be called. There's probably no support for all those varieties, but this form is really awesome. I love those dagger spines. They're just like insane. And the flowers are beautiful as well. So, now I tried these in cultivation a few times and they rot. They just rot, so be careful. And then polycephalus gets huge up there. Okay, and then another really awesome area to go to in Arizona to see some really rare stuff is around Holbrook and eastern Arizona. And around Holbrook, you'll see that Pedicactus peeblesianus, which in all of my explorations around Arizona, I think I visited the Holbrook area about 7 times before I finally found one of these. And I had some GPS from Adolf Mühl in Germany, and he was like, yeah, go ahead, but just don't touch any of them. It's like, all right. But anyway, that's kind of the geography. It's very dissected by all kinds of crazy stuff. The Little Colorado River is a huge driver of speciation up there, much bigger than people realized until about 20 years ago. One of the cool sclerocacti up there is Whippley, or Whipplei, or however. Very cool spiny plant. But my favorites, some of my favorite cacti of all are the Pedicactus peeblesianus and the Fichyxaniorum, which I'll get to some pictures of that in a minute. They're just so much like little gnomes, and you have to be there within 2 or 3 weeks to find them, maybe 4 to 5, depending on the season or the year. Because when it dries out, they pull way back down into that red sand up there, and you just can't find them. You have GPS for all of them, and they're not there. But if you go back the next spring, there they are again. So it's the weirdest thing. That's what they look like from eye level. Right there. Okay? So this is the kind of terrain we're looking at. This is the kind of process of trying to find some of these Arizona cacti. It's no wonder you probably, when you're out there hiking around, you probably walk over about 20 or 30 of them. Hopefully you don't step on them. But anyway, that's that guy up close. Okay? And there's another one at eye level. And there he is up close. Some of the rocks removed. Petrified wood everywhere. It's really cool. And then just throw Sclerocactus Mesa Verde in there because it was reported from Arizona about 40 years ago. It hasn't been found since. So if any of you want to get out there, it's a cool plant. It grows in that habitat. Can you imagine? There they are. But I don't know. Yeah. Okay, another really cool one up this way, Escobaria missouriensis subspecies navajoensis, which probably does have support as a subspecies, grows in horizontal rock gardens, as were mentioned yesterday. There they are. Pretty awesome little things. Very difficult to find. This is right along the Little Colorado River. There you go. But yeah, from eye level, there they are. So. And then, is this a real taxon or not? Probably not. It was originally described from a cultivated single specimen in Czechoslovakia. But there are some really weird Opuntia fragilis, if you want to call it that, up along Steamboat Canyon. So probably forms of fragilis. And then these are some sclerocacti from the Cayenta area, which are very interesting. Probably, I guess, Whipley, or Parviflorus. That's Parviflorus. And there's that agave again. And then another area that's just amazing, and then this is the last region that I'm going to do, is heading up 89A. If you go up northern Arizona, north of Flagstaff, you have a choice to make. You can either take 89 up to Page and hang out with all the people with the jet skis and the boats and houseboats, or you can do the smart thing and make a left on 89A and go along Marble Canyon, Navajo Bridge, go up the Kaibab Plateau, up to Jacob Lake, and that's primo Arizona amazing stuff. And so I'm going to try to show you a little of this. This is the Vermilion Cliffs looking from pretty much Marble Canyon. If you ever get a chance to go up this way, it's absolutely gorgeous, amazing. And so there's so many different species up this way, it's amazing. You can literally drive about, well, I would say, without exaggerating, 25 miles and encounter 5 species of Pediocactus. And that's because you're on an elevation gradient from life zone to life zone to life zone. And these guys have been separated by, there's no gene flow between these, you know what I mean? So you get in this speciation that's really cool. There's also the agave utensis caibavensis. That one looks almost like a Boraspinus, which was weird. You know, you find some weird stuff when you're out there and you're just like, yeah, whatever. This is the kind of cactus Xeranthomoides, which I actually believe is a separate species from Polycephalus, even if there is an integrating cline. But we don't have any solid evidence for that either. But it's pretty cool, you know. And that's the way it looks up there. It's beautiful. Now these guys are amazing. This is the Pediocactus Peeblesianus ficizenniorum that I was talking about. You may know it more as Ficizennii, but it was changed recently. And these are really cool little cacti. And they have all kinds of various spines. Some of the forms have been named before, like Menzelii and Maya and a couple others. I guess Fritz Hochstetter was involved in a lot of that, and we don't really know, and actually I guess recent research that's not published shows that there really are no different forms, there's just a lot of variety. So we'll see. But I just love the corky spines that twist, you know, sort of bad hair, or the stubby spines that don't, you know, twist as much. And that's the fruit right there, you know, big, sort of giant fruit. And that was the cover of a CSSA journal, so I got to be a member for a year because they printed my photo as the cover. I think I donated some money anyway, but yeah, so they're really awesome. That's the habitat up that way at low end. Actually, this is up in Fredonia, which is where Pediocactus sileri grows, in the gypsum. It's a gypsophile. And the soil's awful, right? And look at that. But there's Pedicactus sileri, loving it, just loves it, does great. Up in that pure, almost pure gypsum. And then Pedicactus paradini, whatever, is pretty cool. Some of them are not very hairy at all. And some of them are extraordinarily hairy. So it's a really cool plant. This is up on the way up the Kaibab Plateau. And then an extremely rare sclerocactus up there in House Rock Valley, Sclerocactus sileri, which is not to be confused with Pedicactus sileri. Anderson, in his book, The Cactus Family, I think published Pedicactus under Sclerosileri and left Sclerosileri out of his treatment. It was just a mistake. But it's an easy mistake to make because they're both called the same thing. But anyway, it's very rare. And I guess Dorothy Woodruff was telling me that these are probably actually hybrids between sileri and parviflorus. So I may not actually be showing you Sclerocactus sileri. But whatever they are, they're awesome. And it's really hard to find these. I mean, you know, you're walking around for quite a long time before you even encounter one. And they're very well camouflaged in the dry grass, etc. And then another question up that way that would be cool to sort out is this whole question around Escobaria marstonii. Elzada Clover described this in 1938 from plants found in southern Utah, and it's never been rediscovered there. It was on Hell's Backbone, according to her. Except that in that same publication, she said she found Coryphantha echinus there, echinus. I don't think so, because that's Big Bend, right? So I don't know, maybe there was a mistake. But anyway, the type was lost, as is so often the case. It's not just West Africa that wins again. You know, everything wins again a lot of the time, and we lose these type specimens. The neotype, Benson made the mistake of typing a juvenile Escobaria vivipara as, or missouriensis rather, or no, vivipara. But anyway, I found these a few years ago up there in House Rock. They hadn't been really reported from there since the 1980s. And maybe these are what Clover thought was marstonii. Maybe they're just miniature missouriensis. They sure are cool though. And you can't find them without flowers, really. That one that was the opening slide was just because I had the GPS. And big flowers. And then Marble Canyon is just amazing too. If you get the permit from the tribe up there, the Navajo tribe, you can go in and camp right along the canyon, and you rarely have any company up there. You can hear the river below, and then you go look in the river and there's people rafting by, you know, way down there, but you're in the good part. And one of the things that's really awesome about Marble Canyon is this Pedicactus bradii that grows up along there, along the canyon, not too far from the canyon. There are some as well. And you see these signs, a very small cactus needs your help. And then you're kind of like, okay, you know, what can I do? Like not take any, okay? And then I love this. It says, hiking the canyon rims is encouraged, but please step carefully. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So, you know, there's the canyon. It's amazing. And there's Pedicactus bradii. And then again is this fruit, this pedio fruit that's just incredible in proportion to the plant. That's a little blurry, sorry about that. But I'm really reminded of Pedicactus simpsonii by these. You know, it'd be interesting to see like how close, from molecular data or whatever, these guys are to simpsonii. They're just tiny is all, right? But they're awesome. Okay, so that's a little overview of some of the more rare and unusual cacti of Arizona. If you want to see barrels, saguaros, a whole bunch of different Cylindropuntia and all those other plants, they're very well represented at the Desert Botanical Garden, which some of you did go to. And anywhere else you go south of here, you'll see them. But anyway, so just a little plug for this. This is the Field Guide to Cacti and Other Succulents of Arizona that the Tucson Cactus and Succulent Society published. And again, it's in the second printing. I was one of the authors, Rob Romero, Greg Starr, and Vaughn Watkins. Hey, Vaughn. And it's available. There's 5 copies that I saw on Dave's table still. He brought several more, so there's a bunch of them. And you can also order directly from the Tucson Cactus and Succulent Society. And here's a sample of a 2-page spread. Every species that's in there, and even some of the subspecies and varieties, have a 2-page spread in the book that includes a distribution map, which we try to get as accurate as possible. That can be a hairy endeavor. And then a great description, etymology, the notes, and as many photographs as we could fit on 2 pages that included flowers. So it's quite a it's quite a good resource for Arizona cacti, and it's cool to just look at because the photographers involved, like Rob and Greg and those guys, really amazing photographs. So it's kind of a nice coffee table book too. So there's a little plug for that, and it's mostly along the lines of wanting to further education. But anyway, that's all I got, and if you have some questions, I guess we have a couple minutes, probably. Thank you.